What's up, guys? This is Neil with the Card Guys. Just wanted to come out up front and say that we were having a little bit of technical difficulties. So if the video is a little bit weird, if the audio is a little bit off, especially with my microphone, I apologize. Still a learning experience, still trying to figure everything out. But I didn't want to waste the whole discussion, so I try to salvage as much as I can. But without further ado, here's the rest of the podcast.
With episode 2 of the Cardcast. That's right, we actually made it through episode 1. We're back for episode 2. I'm here with Craig, Neil, and Simon, and we got a bunch of topics to go over today. Right now, we have a meta-analysis that we actually were able to collect all the data for, help you get into the next event, which will be PPG Miami, and that'll be for their invitational final. Then we also have the product delay, and then we will also have what we call the Dragon Ball bubble. So I'd really love for you guys to stay tuned for that one. It's going to be a fun little discussion. And then afterwards, we'll go into a general discussion. Make sure down below you'll see a TCG player affiliate link. Please, if we talk about any decks, any cards, anything as such, buy through that link. It helps us out. It supports us. And we make sure that we'll keep coming back for content and keep giving you good content that you'll love to listen to. So let's get into this meta analysis. So if we look here, we have the major DBS event leader breakdown. Um, it's a lovely pie chart, the best pie chart of all pie charts. And I think, Simon, you helped put this together,
I
right?
did.
So, okay.
So what I did to make this was I compiled the data from 4 major events that happened over the past 2 weeks. I took event data from the PPG in-person event for set 12 release from the weekend of the 23rd, I think it was. I took the top 16 data from that. I took the top 16 data from their webcam invitational that they had the week afterwards. I took the top 8 data from the not the invitational, but an event that gave out invites to the PPG event in Miami. It was a smaller event. It was only 23 or 24 people, but there were really good players there like Dashi, Hernandez, Hill Twins, Joey Palladino. So it was worth taking data from. There were strong enough players there that I felt that taking data from it wouldn't provide outliers. And then lastly, I took data from the Canadian Invitational event. I took top 32 data from that. Now, the top 32 data from the Canadian Invitational was a little over the place, so it may have skewed the data a lot, which is why I have the other leaders section on this tab. That's where a lot of the one of leaders are. But there's some stuff in there that's equally forces in the meta. Like there's Go Tanks in there. I believe there were some reboot there's a reboot deck. The important thing is that the other leaders tab was pretty diverse too, but the named leaders are the ones that had at least 2 decks show up in these 72 topping lists. So obviously the biggest one represented was Dark Broly. Dark Broly was a huge force going into a lot of the tournaments and was on a lot of people's radars to be one of the better decks. The interesting thing though is that it did not convert on the webcam event, the PPG webcam event. People were teched for it in the best of 3, and it actually didn't place top 8. It put in some results in top 16, including from Neil right here. But there was none in top 8, which is really interesting to see. Otherwise, we have a pretty decent spread with Mecha and Red Broly Swap also making up a lot. Launch has put in a lot of results, which I think a lot of people weren't expecting from the leader. They were writing off the deck because they were seeing it as the archetype from set 12 instead of the potential that the leader had as a generic aggro leader. Reboot Gohan was popular, as was Turles, so green decks. And then your staples like Sin Shenron, Majin Vegeta, Reboot Soul Striker. There were a few Self Surge and Hachiyak decks, which were surprising, but in Dragon Ball, pretty much anything can top if you have skill with the deck and know what you're doing, so it wasn't crazy to see. Do any of you guys have any thoughts specifically on this breakdown? There is a lot to discuss, so I hope I didn't take up too much time with it.
No, I think it's safe to say that we are in what I would consider a triangle format between Dark Broly, Mecha Frieza, and Red Broly Swap. Those are the 3 most prevalent and most well-performing decks. Something that I'd like to point out too is that the IRL event in Miami that was hyped up, the other leaders tab holds the victor of that event, which was Invoker. But Invoker obviously was piloted by Legends. Legends has been playing that deck since I think it came out. So he has a lot of skill with that deck.
Hmm.
Something that I do want to put out there is that you have Hatchyak and Cell Surge, which you
Hmm.
touched upon. Two decks that I honestly think didn't have a place in this meta because Hatchyak kind of lost a lot of its potential after Unices were introduced into the game. And then Cell Surge, I've never been a fan of Cell Surge.
You heathen.
I think it's just gotten a little clunkier. I think
So
that once you introduce more Android support, I think then that deck could possibly have a little bit more backing to it. But right
so
now, I think it just topped because the people were good with it.
the interesting thing with the self surge decks that have been topping recently is they aren't playing any of the set 9 chain where it goes Android 17 quick sweep into the cell Android absorbed into the 18 into the surge package. It's like the green good stuff package. It's got like the green 16 in there outside of dormant. Um but then it also plays some of the leader specific stuff, and because the leader is able to filter the through 5 cards every turn with its ability, you get to find specific pieces easier, even though you don't get card advantage. And I think that's why people are playing that leader. I don't know if that's the right call or not. There might be better things, but he is more toolboxy than some of the other green leaders, and you can play a lot more one ofs as opposed to certain decks like Turles or Clash Q, because you see more cards than those decks do, while also being a green leader.
A safe bet too is that because it also has access to yellow, yellow offers a lot of protection in this format
Correct.
right now because you can I believe you can play the combo ape, right? Because the leader is yellow, you can play it.
Yeah, you can play Raiders Warcry.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's just
that was a
another
great.
sense of adding protection.
Yeah, so since you're yellow leader, you
Right
get to
on.
play like Raiders Warcry and like Time Magic and like the Draw Two Apes. And because you're green leader, also you can play all the green good stuff like Demigra Unison and Frieza counterplay and like Cell Kames and Zarbons and Ribrians and all that good stuff. Really, so like
You don't get dormant because you're not a mono green leader, but like Neil
right.
said, you get the Cell Kamehameha too alongside the Frieza counterplay, the Demigra. You get Cell Xeno too really easily because you can see so many cards in your deck. It's not hard to find Cell Xeno. Yeah.
And
I
I
understand.
think that I mean, the other thing too, which I do like to see here, is that aggro slash aggressive, like the aggro aggressive decks are still prevalent because Craig here is the reason why Launch is probably getting the playability that it has. Well, I'm being serious. After you topped in Miami, a lot of people wanted the deck. They saw the capability of the deck and they were playing it more. I believe you were the one that said that someone, or I think the individual who won the Canadian Nationals event had some influence from the deck profile we did that
It
other
was
people have
Eric
been having
Solito,
influence.
right?
Yeah, it's like some
Eric's a great player. He top 16 2019 Nationals with Pan. The dude loves red aggro decks. So not to take anything away from maybe Craig influencing him, but like Eric is known in the community. I'm not trying to say he's a nobody.
no, he's not a nobody. But what I'm saying is that Craig having that performance obviously influenced the leader gaining
Yeah.
more notoriety. And then obviously Marcel with it's Turtles, right? That's how it's pronounced.
Turles.
Turles, Turles. So Marcel obviously bringing that and giving it some notoriety because that's Marcel. If a card has any energy cost over 4, he doesn't know what it is. And and
No
re,
negates.
yeah, reboot Gohan is reboot Gohan. That is the to me, if I want to play aggro, I'm playing reboot Gohan because that deck is so aggressively fast. I mean, the person that topped with it was Jason Scott at Miami. He's been playing reboot Gohan for a while now. Been playing it in the webcam events and playing. He is a fantastic reboot Gohan pilot. The thing is that that deck struggles a little bit once it gets past its initial kill turn, which is where Dark Broly and Mecha are able to kind of pause it for a second. But it still can top and has the possibility of going all the way depending on its matchups. And then
Yeah, no,
Yes, Mecha, yes. Dark Broly, no. And
our
then
play testing put that one to sleep.
I was told I had to do this because someone asked me to. I have to shout out Butters for topping with Clash Coup because he's part of the other leaders. He told me that I had to give him a shout out, and I don't mind doing it. So there, he gets his shout out. He gets his fun little, clout token, and he can enjoy it. Um, I like seeing Reboot Soul Striker here a lot. I think that leader is very strong. I think that the only reason why it's put on the back burner is because blue is not as powerful. However, I think blue is coming back. Blue is coming back a little bit harder with some of the sets that are coming out. And then as Dashi did,
Well, the reason that blue isn't performing is red Broly is pushing it out of the
Yeah.
format right now.
yeah, no, and
So
I
it's
can
just
agree with that.
it's just harder for blue to perform when that deck is just so dominant and it's just nothing can really compete and Soul Striker can just barely squeeze, you know?
And Dashi was the one that topped with the blue baby. I believe that's what it is, blue baby
He topped with Blue Baby and Miguel. I can't remember his last name.
from El Topo Loco.
From El Topo Loco, yeah, Miguel. He topped with Blue Vegito, and like I hit him up for his list because I'm like, hey, you
The
did well with Vegito.
The Vegito leader is gas.
Yeah,
That leader,
that is a fantastic leader that's being stopped because it's blue.
right? Absolutely. If that leader was green, oh, imagine what
And
that leader would do in green or
If that
yellow.
leader was green,
yes,
the game would be over. Do you know how many green blockers we have that are good?
Free
Like we
Gohan
would
Let me
have
kill
blocker.
my guy.
Zarbon
Let me
blocker
flip
with
over.
that.
Zarbon, you have the Android Revenge blocker. That's still good.
Hey Neil,
Like
little guy's Tapion that he sees every turn one.
Oh yeah.
That card's really good too.
The card's fantastic.
Yeah,
I
but
think an annoying deck I see on here, a deck that's always going to be in the back of the minds of players is Sin Shenron.
I'm gonna hang my head on that one.
Tell me I'm wrong. Someone's always going to come with Sin Shenron. The deck
No, right.
is
There's always the Cameron in the room, so yes, absolutely. Like you'll see that deck.
ha.
I think that
Okay.
deck is pure gas, especially now with all the new set 12 stuff. Like before, like the game plan every single game was always turn 1 play the ball, turn 2 play 9-drop Shenron and just wait. But now you're able to build a board, now you're able to do so many different lines of play with
The
the
Nova
Nova
and
and
Omega
Omega.
Shenrons make that deck gas.
Yeah, that and the Oceanus, you get all the filtering done with all the sparking, and like it's just
The
so.
only reason why I don't think that deck is being picked up more is because for that deck to fully have the capability that it needs to win, you need to have Celzino.
I
You
don't
need to
know
have
about
that
all
big
that.
finisher.
It's not stopping the top players. Like
so
No,
don't
no, no,
put
no, no. I'm
Celestino
saying
on
that it's
that.
stopping Sin Shenron. I'm saying it's stopping Sin Shenron. Because if you play with the other SCR, then the deck becomes more grindy, and that style of deck will end up losing because
If that deck were the one to go after, you would see the top players playing it because again, money doesn't matter to these guys. They're gonna find the cards. So I don't think
yeah,
Celzino being the secret. It's not the stop to that deck. It's the fact that that deck is. Uh, you might see it go in
boring.
the
The deck
road.
is gas. No, it's not boring anymore.
Not
You
anymore.
have
I know.
lines of play.
yeah, no,
I
it's
know.
not boring. It has a very interesting deck profile. The thing I don't like is I think Mecha should be above Dark Broly. The only reason why Dark Broly has the showing that it does here is because MRG basically showed up with their whole team on it. That's where the meta influence is.
I don't
I
think so
think
because it went into a lot of different.
I'm saying that because that was a huge bump to it. I'm saying that's a huge bump to it. I'm not discrediting the deck. I think the deck is super strong and super powerful because pumping out 30Ks every turn is very hard to deal with. I'm saying that if it wasn't for MRG having the players that it has that are very good and consistent players testing and playing that deck, it would have a lower percentage than Mecha, and Mecha should have the top spot. I think Mecha, as the deck that it is, should be the boogeyman of the format because Mecha is a good stuff deck. Mecha is just consistent.
Well, the boogeyman of the format is Red Broly. Is like you just can't stop that monster.
so. I
Explain.
think but before we get into the red Broly being the boogeyman, I think Dark Broly just has more representation because the cards have been out since set 11. It barely got anything new from the new set. A lot of people could get the deck beforehand. They weren't struggling to get the cards like and they weren't struggling to play an unknown tested deck like Mecha was. Like people knew Mecha would be good, but it wasn't proven. Dark Broly, a lot of people had already gotten the cards together. The ease of access for cards also plays into a lot of these factors.
Yeah.
But I do think that if this meta keeps running the course that it's going, by the time we get to the Invitational in March, I think Mecha will have more spots than Dark Broly on the top. Just because it has a really good Red Broly matchup, it's very skill intensive. Playing it as a player feels fun and rewarding to play Mecha, and there's a lot of different lines of play, and you never feel like you're truly out of a game. I think
One of the
all of those
cards that makes
reasons,
that deck is Chapel.
yeah, the Chapel's great, but he's not too hard to. Well,
I'm saying that that's one of the reasons why I think the deck is so fun to play. That Chapel, that card itself
yeah.
No, I
blocks
think
out
the fun part
so
of that
much.
deck is U9 Assemble. Being able to do that on your opponent's turn in battle is ridiculous. If
I
that card
mean,
was
Yes.
just
it's
Act Main, if it was Act Main, the deck would operate completely different. Like you would not see that deck. I don't think it would be as prevalent.
you also get to do fun plays like free play Planet Vegeta on one, grab a Bardock Ape for turn two. Then on your opponent's turn, you get to play the U9 Assemble, draw three, put in a U9 card, draw another card. Like there's a lot that you can do with the deck.
Yeah, but it's like literally so synergistic with U9 Assemble. Like that card, if you take U9 Assemble out of the equation,
Yeah, it
I
wouldn't
think
be a
that
deck.
right. Like so, if anything were to happen to U9 Assemble, I think Mecha Frieza would just completely fall off.
But Unite Assemble won't have anything done to it. I
No,
like
right.
if
Like,
they're
but if
having
people were talking about, okay, so like, how do we nerf Red Broly? All right, if we nerf Red Broly, then we have to nerf Mecha Frieza because then it just becomes the most prevalent deck out there. Red Broly kind of pseudo checks it a little bit, right?
No, Mecha actually beats Red Broly because they have ways to tap the dudes and they can turn off the swap skills with things like the Vegeta's Final Flash. At least in my experience, Mecha has a
because
positive Red Broly matchup.
Yeah, because like turn one, you plan it into BMS, and then on your opponent's turn, you can like just tyrannical blow and just stop their chain completely, and just stop them on their tracks.
So to me, Red Broly is like the barrier to entry for the format. Like you have to be this tall to ride the roller coaster. Your deck has to have some way of being able to beat Red Broly for it to be considered one of the best decks in the format. Dark Broly can beat it, Mecha can beat it, and a lot of these decks up here have tools to beat Red Broly. That doesn't mean that they're favored against Red Broly though. But you have to be able to beat that deck because people will play aggro decks and people will play Broly decks because Waifu Tax and Dragon Ball.
I also think that the better way to phrase that is, if you want to be, I don't think you want to go in. You obviously you want to beat the deck. I think you want to go in if your deck can side cards that can tech against it, then 100%. So what I mean by that is this, and this is why I love triangle formats because to me triangle formats are in my opinion the best format for a TCG. It's okay to have outliers. So you have 15 cards. If you have 15 cards, you have 15 cards dedicated to the two other decks you have to worry about. 9 times out of 10, you're going to slot 5 cards. So let's say 5 cards for the matchup, right? You'll have 5 for one deck, 5 for the other, and then you'll have 5 open slots, which means you have 5 flex cards, which usually the time is going to be that black mechie that's been floating around because that card is just overall good. And if you're Dark Broly, you're siding in 10 card. You're siding in. You have 10 cards in your sideboard that can help with Mecha and Red Broly. Now, the other thing too is that a lot of these cards will carry over to some of the outliers in the format. Launch, Gohan, Turles, Sin, Hatchiyak, Surge, Majin, Soul Striker, all these other random ass decks. You're gonna have them kind of cross over. I know that, for example, Simon and I were working on a deck, and we go, this card is good against this, and it's a strict 3 for 3 in out, so you don't feel like you're screwing up your ratios. And that's when you build your sideboard. That's why it's easier to build it in a triangle format because you can confidently build your sideboard knowing you're going to be seeing these other two decks in the room more often than not, and you're able to side correctly against outliers because certain cards can tech in against those other decks. There are certain good sideboard cards that will help against everything. Now, I do not think that these aggro decks, Launch, Gohan, and Turles, can really stand up to Red Broly. I think Red Broly is the premier quote unquote aggro.
Oh, you're
I
talking about like if you were to compare them against the rest of the format. You're not
Yes,
trying
yes,
to put them against Red Broly because Launch smokes that deck every day.
so that's what I'm saying is that Red Broly is checked by launch. However, Mecha and Dark Broly, in your opinion, do they get smashed by launch or do you have a difficult time?
I have a really good matchup against Mecha, and then Dark Broly is no, that's a shit show.
So
It hard shuts that deck down. Like
so
I can't stop Dark Broly with Launch.
so
Neil proved that a couple times yesterday.
is it safe to say that launch could be the premier aggro deck of the format?
I think she's your fourth. If you were to move into, I think her and Green Gohan or Reboot Gohan would be your like two outliers that you can expect to make a better showing than like Cell Surge or Turles or anything. I think Turles was the pilot. I don't think it was the deck.
That was the
But
pilot. That was Marcel,
yeah. So
100%.
again, just like
Um,
with Butters, I don't think you can just throw anybody with a Clash Coup deck and be like, all right, here, go.
so with Turles, we should also talk about that another person who topped with it was Michael Silk, like the
Oh yeah,
MVP
no,
from
he's
Europe.
insane.
So like that's another good player playing the Turles deck. Like nothing against the deck. The deck is fine, but the players playing it just take it to another level. Like
Yeah.
Shout out to Silk, by the way. He is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He is. I remember meeting him at the PPG Invitational early last year before COVID destroyed the IRL events. Awesome guy, awesome pilot. He topped that invitational with Red Baby. Like of all the decks, he topped it with that. So he is a fantastic pilot. Um, but I think
A lot of it really is like if you know, like you're talking about your triangle meta. If you know the triangle meta walking into an event, what percentage matchup do you have game one against Dark Broly? What percentage matchup do you have against Red Broly? What do you have against Mecha? If you're sitting at like 50-50 with Mecha and Dark Broly, but you're really bad against Red Broly, then like you're talking about, your sideboard. So you're going to more heavily sideboard versus that. I just think that the outliers are really going to be more pilot friendly. So like you could expect Hernandez walking into that event with Black Vegeks. Like we haven't seen Vegeks top anything recently, and he comes in with pure aggro, pure gas, top
he
three.
also said that he's not going to be playing it for Miami. He's made that
No,
loud and
but it was
clear.
the thing that he could get his hands on, and I mean, look at what the pilot did to the event.
He is
I
a
mean, not
prime example of, and I agree with you, he is a prime example of a pilot with a deck that no one would really see. Same
right.
thing when I mentioned prior with Legends. Legends is a fantastic Invoker pilot. Same with Sublet. If Sublet was going to IRL events, he'd be easily topping with Invoker. That he is insane with those style of decks.
Yeah.
Um,
This
and
Miami event is going to be like I think it would almost be like Nationals 1.1 or 2.0, whatever you call it. Like you're going to have the best of the best that have been trying to qualify because everybody wants to go to an in-person event. One, like they're tired of online. They're tired. Granted, that's what we get, and it's fine with COVID. That's what we need. We need to be able to still play the game. But to sling cardboard in person, to shuffle your deck, to be able to interact with your opponent like face to face, or mask to mask, however Simon wants to go with it. Um, it feels so good. Like when I get to sit down and test with Neil yesterday, the in-person interactions, the laughing, the joking, it feels more fun versus forced. They're going to be trying to get to this one, and again, with all the hype and the talk in the community, people want to get back to that IRL, and they're going to be pushing for it. So this event's going to be big. It's going to
so
be super big.
I do want to point out obviously that we don't have the statistics right now for the Super Players event that ended today as well as the PPG online event. I think that was like the Latin America one, but
yeah.
I personally am not going to consider that towards the Miami that have influence on Miami in March. I think the Super Players one would be more apt to influence because since it was on Untap and not a webcam event, that could give people the opportunity to play the decks like Dark Broly, Mecha, and Red Broly because you're not limited to getting physical cards. I don't know what the spread was. I don't know how it was. I know that there was a big showing of Red Broly. That deck was shown. A lot of people were like, "This deck is really, really good." And exactly as everyone else has said, we're starting to see that people are realizing how good this is and that it's being picked up. People are play testing with more. You guys obviously know that we have a group planning to go to Miami, and I've been explaining that one of the decks I'm going to test of playing is Red Broly. Red Broly. If I don't want to play Dark Broly. I've played. I don't like the. I've never been a. I don't like the deck play style a little bit. I think Red Broly and Mecha are the two triangle format decks that I would play. I like getting rewarded for my play style, but I also like smacking people in the face with giant things. So Red Broly's great.
Completely opposite of what you do in real life. Got it.
Thanks. Um, but I also want to touch on, since we do have so many other leaders, that 21%, that's almost a quarter of this pie chart.
1 in 5. So
Yeah,
it's a big percentage. It's really a big percentage. But that's again because we know that triangle meta. You can always take whatever X leader you have and tweak your deck to be great against 1, 2 of those decks, and hope that you dodge your bad matchups. I think it's a healthy format. So that's great.
this is a very healthy format. I also do think that because of the nature of the events that we have, not to diminish the events in general, but because a lot of these people are playing in the webcam events, to be fair, I can say that the webcam events can be more tailored to be friendlier to a less competitive player base. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So when you get these less competitive players, not to say that, not everyone is like major competitive, but people that you wouldn't expect to travel to every event, they can do it in the sanctity of their own home. They might not have, Mecha lying around or Dark Broly or Red Broly swap. What they might be having around could be these small pet decks that they like. For example, Invoker. Red Broly hates Invoker.
No,
Red
Invoker
Broly.
hates Red Broly.
Is it the opposite?
Yeah, Invoker can't stop Red Broly at all.
Is it
You gotta
Mecha
hope you dodge
Is
that
it
matchup.
Mecha or Red Broly that doesn't like Invoker?
Mecha doesn't like Invoker.
Mecha doesn't. Yeah, I switched the two around.
Mecha
That's my
Mecha
fault.
can't pressure Invoker enough. They don't put out enough attacks. Invoker folds to the aggro decks and just beats up on the other mid-range and control decks. Stuff like Turles, Reboot Gohan, like those sort of decks are what take advantage of Invoker a lot.
I mean, it's also not fair when you get catastrophic blown from 6 life to 0.
Yeah, I think Invoker's fine for the format. I think not enough people are playing it either because they're uh, we talked about this earlier how you can't really get priced out, but like
Yeah,
you
that's
look
the deck that price checks you.
Amen.
you look at Invoker and you look at your wallet and you see $800 for the cheapest listing for Apex and you're like, do I really want to spend 800 of my $1,100 on this deck on this one card? But that's besides the point. Invoker's really
It's
skill
neither here or
intensive.
there.
Not a
Yeah.
lot of people are going to be playing it.
You have to
Invoker
know to
though,
make the right call. Like that deck needs to have the right call made every choice. If you make that play mistake, it's not one of those decks that can stumble and come back.
there's no room
Like
for error. It's very
no.
precise.
Right. Like Go Tanks, like when I played it in Orlando or in Miami, what, back in October, Neil played it back in October. Like we had, because we didn't play it much, we had still room for error because that deck can rebound back off of itself because it doesn't take life to do its abilities or anything like that. So it sits there.
I think
Invoker
it's safe to
definitely can't make a bad decision.
I think it's safe to say, though, going into Miami in March, because we have about a month left. This is a month of strict testing, a month of now we're getting down to the grindstone. We're really looking into it because Miami is going to be stacked. That is a stacked event. If I were to look at it, it's almost as stacked as Nationals. Now,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
not
that's
trying
like I
to,
said, it's going to be Nationals 2.0. Abs
yeah,
100%.
you can't equate it. Yeah, and oh, and we'll get into that. That now that that event isn't being set on a release weekend, this is huge. This is huge because now the meta is solved. Now we're in a solved meta. We know what to expect. We know what to test against, and we know what certain cards could really start teching against everything else. I remember that there was the yellow Zarbon. That card was being teched for sets ago. People were starting to test when formats were quote unquote solved. And then you started getting cards like that coming out of nowhere. I think it's safe to assume that Miami, you're going to see Dark Broly, Mecha, and Red Broly, no issue. You're going to see Launch. You're going to see Reboot Gohan. I don't think you'll see Turtles because I think that's pilot intensive. I think you'll see maybe very small sliver of Sin Shenron. I don't think you'll see Hatchiyak. You will not see Cell Surge.
Poor
You'll
Hatch.
see you'll see Soul Striker because it's a blue deck. Someone's gonna play it because as much as you want to, Ubuni's a great card.
You'll see plenty of green decks. That's one thing that didn't really get covered on this. But under the other leaders section, there was a green Gotenks deck. There was the green Clash Coup deck. There was, I believe, there was a set 10, whatever Dredge Coup, whatever you want to call it. I think there was one of those on there. There's good green decks that like. It's really you pick a leader that you like and you build the deck and the package around it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
green is
Like
just super
those sort of
segmented this
things.
format.
Yeah.
So like if you add up the percentages of like all the green leaders, then you start seeing the numbers that Red Broly and
Looking up,
Mecha
but
are
highly
putting
recommend.
up. So like
Green feels a lot kind of like how blue felt during set 10 and 11, where there were a few real like in set 10 there was the blue Zamasu deck, there was the blue Vegito deck, and there was, I'm trying to think, there was the blue Soul Striker deck. All three of those decks like put up random one of or two of tops, but when you looked at the list and how similar they were and you started like adding the decks together, they made up a pretty significant portion of the meta game. And that's what the green decks are feeling like they're starting to do now.
How I
Because
want to
that
put it is
shell is so
this.
strong. I mean, that
Yeah.
shell, dormant
Yeah.
potential, the unisons, the Frieza counterplays, like that entire chain is very strong. So
Hey,
until
look,
you get your
How to play
that's right.
green.
Simon did that post, how to play
the
green, play
green
4 of these
16.
cards.
You get
Yeah.
4 dormant potential, you get 4 Demigra, you get 4 of the Frieza counterplay, you get 3 Roshi, and 1 Salzino. Those 16 cards go into nearly every single green deck right now, just because of how toolboxy they are. And then you get to play stuff like Cell Kamehameha, you get Ribriam Punishing Passion, you get Zarbon blockers, you get all these tools before you even get to the meat and potatoes of your deck archetype. Like, Zamasu, yeah, like there's so many just good green
Zarbon.
cards. Yeah, that like there's
Zappia.
so many good. Yeah,
We could just
see,
keep rattling off all of these
Let's
cards.
explain all the green things. 60 cards.
that's what. So I am a big fan of the Gotenks deck. We should have a profile coming out on my current green list for Gotenks on the channel either before or after this. So you guys can take a look at that. I do like the green Gotenks deck a lot because it can grind, but the fact that itself takes up with its package about 18 to 19 cards for the core of its own deck means that it competes a lot with the other good green staples, which could also like, is it worth playing those core cards that are for the deck over those green staples? If you look at the Clash Q deck, there's like no specific cards in there. They're not playing Final Showdowns as far as I'm aware of. They're playing Krillins for the leader to get double strike, but there's good Krillins that do utility things. Like the cards that they're playing that are for the engine are like 8 at most. So they get to just put in so many good cards in their main. They're just good stuff decks. And historically, good stuff decks in Dragon Ball have been very good.
I think that Mecha was also everyone was so souped because Mecha was coming back, because Mecha was a very popular leader
Mhm.
before it was axed. And look, if I wanted to play green, I would just play good stuff. There's no motivation to play a core of any deck. There's no motivation to be cute with any type of sub archetype. Literally just throw all the good stuff in. Let me loop Dormant Potential and Roshi over and over again. Please. Let me loop Cell and Roshi. Let me loop all of these cards so I can outvalue you. Honestly, if you put yellow good stuff mecha versus green stuff good stuff, I think green has just more value good stuff. I think the reason why mecha is so prevalent is that because one, mecha, the leader is good. The leader is good. And that makes everything better. You know what I mean? Green has so many leaders, yellow has the leader.
Well, it used to be like the yellow Broly was the end all be all to yellow leaders. So yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you were to just take all the good stuff yellow and all the good stuff green, green outvalues it. But because yellow has the leader, yellow is taking more of the meta.
well,
So
they're
to
not
be
that. Like,
fair,
Well, it's really Red Broly that's checking the meta. Like that's what's pushing a lot of the other decks out of the format. in my opinion.
So to be fair, I think yellow had a good deck before Mecha came out. I think yellow Gotenks was just underplayed and underappreciated. I think that deck was still really solid, especially after the upgrade that it got from the draft box and the expansion set for all of the yellow cards. I just think that people were very tunnel visioned in on what the meta already was and didn't want to experiment, because that happens a lot in Dragon Ball. People will get an idea in their head of what the best decks are, and they don't want to experiment or tweak things. And then you'll roll into an event at the end of a quote unquote solved format. Then you'll have stuff like blue green Harudagarn hand control topping nationals. Like,
That deck
n-
was gas.
nobody would have thought that that could happen. But like, there's so much innovation in Dragon Ball that playing well, knowing your deck and knowing your matchups is always going to be, in my opinion, the right play for any format.
So, kind of starting to wrap this up. This graphic pretty much gives everyone a good idea of what to expect going into Miami. If you are going to Miami, if you're doing the webcam invitational, I think that that's a whole different talk. I think this right here is perfect for the in-person event for Miami, which I think is what people are going to be more interested in hearing about.
I
But
agree.
I know what you said, Neil, was, and what Simon touched on, is that a lot of these expansion decks add a lot to these already solved decks, adding a little bit of, spice into it, which leads me into the next topic that we have, is that we just found out that I believe the Evolutions booster, the one that was coming out in March set for release weekend, was delayed by Bandai about 3 weeks. Now, this obviously could be I'm just going to say, and like chalk this up to COVID did this,
Oh yeah, 100%
because
COVID did this.
so
See, the issue is that Bandai as a whole has been having a lot of freight issues. So a lot of stuff is actually like stuck overseas. So all of their games are pretty much been delayed by like at least about a month for pretty much everything.
now is this an issue, or is this a blessing in disguise?
I think it's
Oh,
a
it's a
blessing in
blessing.
disguise.
Easily.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, and I'm just going to call a spade a spade. It was kind of strategically put that the Invitational was being put on release weekend. It makes
It is
sense.
because you
That's
have access to the cards. It's at that point is who has the most money with the most reputation with vendors or distributors or stores to
who
get the
has the most
product before you
connections.
can. Right. Right. So
Right
like no
now,
offense to the PPG crew, but they have PPG, so they get access to that stuff right then and there.
I
You know,
mean,
Daylon's team, they've got vendors and distributors in their crew that can get them cards.
to be fair,
yeah,
we have a lot of people that in on our team, and we know people that work at stores that we can get our product to. But for your average Joe who doesn't have those connections, it's a lot harder for them.
yeah.
Um, I think that the way that Nationals handled, even though there was new product with the magnificent decks or the whatever they're called, I always forget, with those coming out with the set of promos with them in
Yes.
them, you could still pre-order them from core TCG beforehand to guarantee that you had the promos, because it was a small thing right before nationals. I
Yes.
think that that really leveled the playing field and gave everybody time to assemble what they thought would be the best deck for the tournament. It,
Absolutely.
and I think that is huge, because in any card game that I play, that I want it to be a healthy format. I don't want people to get price gated or just gimped at an event. I want to play against people playing the best that they can. That's how I am all the time. I'm very competitive. I don't feel satisfied playing against somebody that I won because they didn't have Cell Xeno. Like, they play a different secret rare on me when Cell Xeno would have killed me. Like, sure, I
Yeah.
got the win, but it's not as satisfying of a win as if I had done it elseways.
I got the win, but at what cost?
Exactly.
But as we said, it is a blessing in disguise. And to be fair, PPG has been saving the competitive season. They did really well with the webcam events, as much as they've been criticized. They have been holding the IRL events with the qualifiers around the country, and the stores were able to work with them to
I
obviously mitigate the COVID risk, because they've been taking responsibility for it. Craig, you obviously said that PPG did a very good job with the cleanliness of their store. And then you are watching that the core competitive players have been investing into this, because when we only have one vendor, ever since ARG dropped everything and left Dragon Ball, PPG was kind of left to hold a torch. Granted, we had TOs like Top Cut. Top Cut hasn't done anything. We have Core TCG, which I haven't seen them do anything. They could be doing stuff on the West Coast, but I'm on the East Coast, so
They do.
They're
obviously I
doing a
don't.
lot of like,
They did some of the
yeah,
Bandai
they're
events,
doing a
if I'm
lot of
not
webcam
mistaken, like
stuff.
the 64 player webcam stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, so
they haven't done any
they
IRL stuff, but they've done the webcam stuff. So
yeah, so
The biggest thing is
obviously
that they're in California, and like California is on hard lockdown.
yeah, so they're
Out
kind of restricted.
as far as I'm aware of, only 4 states have been able to hold the in-store qualifiers for this. I believe it was Arizona, Texas, Florida, and then one of the New England states,
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah,
I
they're
believe those
holding
are the.
another one. They're holding another one on the 21st, and I'm going to be going to that.
I think those are the
No, it wasn't Massachusetts. I'm sorry, it was Connecticut. It's on the border. It was
got it.
Connecticut.
I knew it was close. But those are the only like 4 states that we've gotten to host an event in. And if you're in the Midwest or like
hmm.
Iowa, or if you're like in Iowa or like Chicago or any of those like northern Midwest states, to get to one of these qualifier events in person, it's not easy. Now, granted, you can get to one. It's while it's not easy, it is attainable. So a lot of people's only routes have been through the webcam events, which I do
They've
think
had
PPG.
nothing.
I think PPG has done a great job for the webcam events with hosting a large quantity of them that people can qualify through, but it's just a shame that we don't get the amount of in-store play that we used to.
I
It's coming
think
back.
now
It,
that
it really is. I
yeah,
mean, we've got vaccines. More people are starting to venture into stuff because they see stores are forcing masks. They're doing the heavy duty cleaning the night before. They've got hand sanitizer all over the place. They're doing temp checks. Like for most of the people that are not what I would assume would be immune compromised are venturing out more into this because they see that this stuff can work and it is working. So let's start to get life back to normal, and I think we're going to start to see more of that come probably summer than fall of this upcoming year. So
absolutely. And I think that if we can hold the type of progress that we've had, we will be able to have a big style in-person event more so in November or December.
yeah,
Now, do I think that's going to be a Bandai event? No. I think Bandai is going to wait till 2022 to hold some bigger events. I think then that's when I think that's when regionals are going to come back, is in 2022. However, I think PPG or any other TO is going to hold a bigger style event. Now, is that going to be PPG throwing another invitational at the end of the year? Probably not, but like that could probably be, they might be able to hold an event at a convention center or at an event center like they do with, I think it was Ocelot Heritage Park that they do in Orlando all the time.
It's a good
They could,
venue.
that's a good venue and they could probably do it again. Or
I'll make you a
uh
dress bet, Cam. I'm gonna make you a dress bet like I made with Neil. I think Bandai is going to hit in the fourth quarter of this year. You'll see they're going to drop a big event on us in the fourth quarter of this year.
And I
I
think
just,
you're crazy.
you think? Why is that? Like, I don't think that they're going to do it like European style. I think they'll do something in the United States. I think that they've got enough stuff with Machado, and Machado's talked to them enough about it. And I haven't even talked to Machado about it myself, but I just think somewhere in October, November, December of this year, we'll see Bandai drop an event on us.
I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be, I think Bandai is going to do it themselves.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It'll be sort of
But
like a celebration.
the only reason why, if it does happen, is because I hate that this is getting brought up in a podcast, but it obviously has to because it correlates with what we're talking about, is that how aggressively the vaccines are now being rolled out come this new um the office that just stepped in. How aggressive it's been. They've just hit 1 million vaccinations a day. And they're really being aggressive with it. And if they're being aggressive with it and we're starting to get more people vaccinated, then we're starting to curb this. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to go away. I've had the vaccine. I've had both shots. I know exactly what it's done. Do I feel more comfortable flying to Miami because of it? Hell yeah. I wouldn't be flying to Miami if I didn't feel comfortable. Now, I also see where Neil is coming from. If I can see that it could be difficult because, there's a lot of scrutiny with the vaccines. There's a lot of scrutiny with it. And that could cause Bandai to possibly push it into the first quarter of 2022. However, like, both of your sides make sense, and I'm not putting on a dress bet because my legs look awful in the dress. I
Oh
do
wait,
not have I do not have
Neil.
curves. I do not have curves or nothing. I'm not going to put myself in a dress because I'm not going to get roasted on the hyperbolic chat.
Neil, can I invoke the dress clause for March?
Uh,
I won.
we'll talk about this later. I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Um, but the set being pushed back because we kind of did get a little off. The set being pushed back does actually help with the format. It solidifies it, and for people like us who want to solve these formats and have decks that we need to test against, I'm very confident going into this next month of testing, knowing that these are the decks that I'm going to be preparing against, and I can be like, okay, I'm playing Mecha Frieza. I want to have Reboot, Launch, Dark Broly, and Red Broly. Put those 4 decks and let's just test all against it. And I'll be comfortable going into that event, knowing that there's a good chance that if I play correctly, I could top.
We gauntleted that stuff last night, and it was fun. Like I really enjoyed putting each deck to the test because again, like we wanted to try the outlier decks. So Neil tried Hatch, in which case we had some success with it, but not against some other decks. So
Yeah.
it was a learning curve. But again, pilot like that Hatch pilot may have just been the man for Hatch. So
I talked to him. His name is Lee Sheehan, I think. He spoke with me, and he has been on that deck for a while. He made that call because he said it was a deck that, if no one thought was going to be around, could surprise the meta, and it did. Now, because there's been a lot of hype with it now, and a lot of people have been talking more about it because it's a leader that a lot of people can get their hands on, I don't think it's going to be set up to be anything special going into Miami. However, it was cool to see that kind of flare up in the pan. Now, the thing is, another good reason that the set was delayed was because, as Simon touched on, is the price and the fact that a lot of cards on release weekends are more expensive. Because as we know right now, DBS is in a bubble. Now, I mentioned this earlier at the very beginning. DBS bubble means that a lot of cards are being bought out now randomly. I can understand that Victory Strike and Apex are, high hundreds, and Victory Strike is now, I think, was at 2,500 last time I saw the lowest TCG listing, and the signature SPRs
the
are
playset's like 4 grand. Yeah,
yeah, but random SPRs being bought out.
Oh, it's not random anymore. It's pretty much like all of them.
it's strategic.
It's like set one
Yeah.
day, set two the next day, and it just keeps going until they're all going to be gone.
Well, the thing is that this is what's going on with Pokemon. There's a bubble, and this bubble's going to pop. Collectors are coming into the game. They're realizing that what we were having this discussion. A box of Galactic Battle was being sold on eBay for $800. A box of Galactic Battle. Universal Onslaught is being sold for $800. My local is selling them for $500 a box. Do I want to buy that? No, I will never buy it for $500. It's not worth my money. I'm not going to hold on to that box right now. I don't care enough. But if well,
For playability wise, like it does hurt, but thankfully it's limited to a couple secret rares and the SPRs. So again, unless you're somebody that wants to bling out your decks, max rarity, all that stuff, you can still get most of the SRs cheap. Granted, they're what? So Cell Xeno, the Green Broly, Apex, and Victory Strike. Those four are pretty big, but most people having come into it should have already had them at that point. So I think we're still in a safe playability wise. Collectability wise, you are SOL if you're trying to chase anything of that nature right now.
the issue that it causes is FOMO, the fear of missing out. A lot of people are getting discouraged because of it. and it's in and it now. Am I saying that collectors are bad for a card game? No. Dragon Ball is a very well-known IP. It's
Yeah.
going to have collectability. Now, what this does is it can hinder people trying to get into the game, be like, ooh, this SPR art is really cool. I want to have one. And then they look and it's like $150. It's like, oh, that sucks. Coming from someone that's,
Yeah, but isn't it like
collecting.
the guy that's trying to buy like foil fetch lands? Like, oh man, I can get a regular fetch land or I can get a foil fetch land, and there's a 300% markup difference between the two. That that's a lifestyle choice.
Exactly. Like you can buy a Toyota Corolla, it's going to get you from point A to point B, but then if you go out and buy a Bugatti over the Toyota Corolla, both get you from point A to point B. You just wanted the nicer thing. But
Yeah.
it sucks because people are indirectly causing the fear of missing out, which is hurting the buy sell trade community more and more because people are no longer circulating product
Just
because
holding
now
on
they
to
do,
everything. Absolutely.
now what's happening is that if the with especially with COVID, because the product is getting less circulated, it also means that people aren't it's having more difficulty getting into the game. With Magic, you can with Magic, yes, there are certain sets that I'm not going to say go out and buy a box. I'm not going to say to you go buy a box of Innistrad original and try and just open it up because you want it. I'm saying that
It's a
you can if
collector thing at that point.
that's a collective thing. Like if I wanted to, I guarantee you I could probably go find a bottle of Battle for a box of Battle for Zendikar for maybe like $150, right? Maybe $100.
Yeah, they go for about 180 right now. No, BFZ goes for 220. Oath goes for 180.
So, but that's what I'm saying is that if you want to buy boxes of older sets or like just at the end of a format or just something, you should be able to. Now, obviously, you can buy just not an SPR and not complain about it. Like, I don't care. Or you could do what I plan on doing and borrow cards. That's not really an issue. But because
Or
there's less
rent.
product, well, I'm saying because there's less cards being circulated, it's indirectly hurting the community, especially now that we're in COVID. We are in a society and we're in a
We
period of
live in a
time right now
society.
where, yeah, right. We're in a period of time right now where it's only hurting this game. If we didn't have this whole issue with COVID, this would not be doing anything. I mean, what do y'all think? Am I just blowing
No,
smoke
no.
or
I think that for most of the stuff that has SPRs that are getting bought out, there's easily accessible versions of those cards, or they're not meta relevant enough to see play. For the
Right.
super
So
combo SPRs, there's commons that are easily accessible at like $2 at the highest and bulk at the lowest. Um, for example, like Final Showdown Goku, Kaioken Son Goku, like there's regular printings of those and across multiple things.
yeah, the only thing that's
All
like really
collectibility.
hard is Celzino. Celzino's price is the only thing that really is because of the yellow decks and green decks that really that is the ultimate SPR for them. But like Victory Strike, when was the last time Victory Strike was relevant? It was when the Twins were doing it with the yellow Broly, right?
When
Like
Legends
nobody's
played
yeah?
really
it and
done,
he got first.
huh?
Yeah, Legends just won with Victory Strike.
No, no, right. But again,
He's
that's
talking
one
about
person.
Awaken.
I know.
I'm talking about
I
the
thought you
real OG Victory Strike. OG Victory Strike. Unless it's
Victory Strike.
Chilai.
Evan.
No, it was no Chilai and Limo. Remember that deck that went into the green Goku and then evolved into the Victory Strike? Yeah.
But look at how long it's been since that card was really meta relevant. Okay, so right now he's collectors, and because you can't get
I
them,
mean, the next set is going to have U7 and Goku's lineage support, so it just takes one card for that card to be playable again. I mean, I'm being serious.
but of the four B-man secret rares, really the big one is Celzino because the green Broly.
That's secret.
Even then, Cell Zeno can be bought at. I've been seeing people buy them at $300 to $350. To me,
Right.
that's reasonable.
Right. So really, in a meta an environment that we're in right now, we don't have to worry about those other three. So again, we leave collectability out versus playability, like Simon's talking about. Like there are cheaper versions of all this stuff here. So I don't think the bubble really hurts the meta itself. It hurts
So
the getting people into it, but as far as like what we're doing, I think it's safe.
So a question I want to pose to you three is this. Does the fact that collectors have come into the game and are causing a bubble, is that a plague that's going to end up hurting the game? Or is this just going to be another, two lane highway, one's collectability and one's playability, and they're not going to cross. They're just going to run parallel to each other.
So here's the way that I look at it. You guys used to play during Colossal Warfare, right?
Yeah,
That was set 4. How much did boxes cost?
like anywhere between 75 to 90.
Okay. What was the most expensive card in that box?
Let me think.
Was it a
Set
demigraph?
4. Set 4 outside of secret rares. What was the most
Oh.
expensive SR?
One drop Bardock, right?
Rock?
One drop Bardock. It was $40.
Yeah.
What was the next most expensive card?
At all costs, Vegeta.
Sure. But that one only got popular for a while. The point that I'm trying to make is Dragon Ball boxes used to be so top heavy on what was expensive, and those cards used to always be the good cards because nobody was opening sealed product. And sealed product ended up becoming cheaper. Like you used to be able to find boxes for 40, 45 bucks at the time. Nowadays, boxes keep their value. The cards inside them keep their value. When you open a box, you don't feel like you negged on value because there's more collectability, but there's also playable cards. I think that the changes that Bandai has made from set 10 moving forwards for the game have been nothing but good for competitive players and for collectors. I think that there's a good enough market for both where it's healthy, that it feels good to put money into the game and not like you're getting blown out.
And your LGSs feel safer with product because they know they can move it, and that
Exactly.
with it gaining collectability, they now, if they are sitting on a case of say set 10, they know that it's going to retain at least the value they've got into it. They're not going to neg. Where like back what World Martial Arts Tournament, the distributors and stuff like that pushed so much of that product that you had stores that were sitting on it, and for them to host one event.
We still have boxes of it at my store.
Every
Right.
store
My
still has
my LGS
boxes.
before he stopped doing stuff literally donated 2 cases of World Martial Arts Tournament to the Toys for Tot stuff.
I mean, World Martial Arts almost killed the entire game, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Even though that was
Yeah,
one of my favorite
set
sets.
4 or World Martial Arts Tournament and set 5, like 4 and 5, definitely flooded the market full of stuff. Like nobody wanted Prime. And then you had the short print of set 6. Like
Oh, that was awful.
it's because set 4 came out and it was really, really popular, and then a lot of stores missed out. And then after that, World Martial Arts Tournament came out, and you can pretty much get a playset of every single card in like 3 boxes. So it kind of just like destroyed the whole secondary market and pretty much almost killed everything.
And then what was it? Set 5 was Miraculous Revival?
Yeah.
Miraculous Revival was good. Miraculous Revival had
I think that was a
Gogeta.
good box, like a good
It had
set.
really good. It had nice looking SPRs because it was the start of the black background, gold outline SPRs, which were hit or miss with some people. I liked them.
I
There
thought
was a
that was
lot.
cool.
There was a lot of support for old archetypes. There was the new Android stuff with the Hellfighter and the Super 17, but also Deadly Defender. We got Gogeta 7 in that set. We got all the new Deadly Defenders. We got all of the Wish leaders like Shenron. Well, most of the Wish leaders. I think set 5 was a good set, and it was a little bit undervalued because the game was smaller at the time. If a set like set 5 came out nowadays, I think we see it like every set nowadays reminds me a lot of set 5. Like it was meta impactful enough,
Yeah.
but it just was it was the start of the good sets, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean,
So
there for the longest time, you pretty much your deck building was what, like 4 World Peace and 7 Dragon Balls.
It
Or
was
the
it was really
and
easy to
Child's Wish and Child's Wish.
Child's
Yes,
Wish
right.
was legal for a while.
So
So
I just think the amount of product pushed into the market, especially because DBS was not as it. You almost nagged opening a box. Like when you paid
however,
Yes.
$70, $75, you opened up, and you might, unless you caught the big SPR or the secret rare, you might get $40, $50 worth of value out of a box. It just felt bad.
and like every card game, you have to crawl before you can walk. And at this point, Dragon Ball is now at a point where we're now starting to see them walk a little bit. We've kind of gotten out of the muck. They've kind of been able to be like, all right, we've done things wrong, we've done things good. Let's kind of start let's listen to the community. Thank
They definitely
God that they're
do.
listening to the
Yeah.
thank God that they're listening to the community.
So
Like the fact that they're doing all these, hey, what card do you want to see reprinted? What's this? What's this? The fact that the Trunks got chosen as the reprint card is awesome because that card is such a good card, but it was just limited.
Yeah, they didn't force bad reprints on you.
No, exactly.
Just for the sake of it.
And the fact that the
um
leaders are getting chosen and voting for what's getting,
Rebooted.
rebooted,
Yeah.
which is great.
so you said that you have to walk before you can run, or
Crawl before you can
you have
walk,
to crawl
sure.
before you can walk. I think that set 5 was crawling. Set 5 and 6 were crawling. I think Unison or the multicolor block set 7 through 9 was them walking, but I think they've really hit their stride set 10 onwards. I think
Yeah,
the game is
10
in a
onward has
great
been
They've
spot.
hit a really
strong.
good balance starting with set
They
10 in terms
the
of like
only
making sure
like
the value in the
stumble.
box is correct, making sure that just pretty much everything like the foiling has been great,
The
barring
ratios are beautiful.
What?
draft box 3.
When have you opened product?
I think the
They've
ratios are
got
really good right now,
they've
Craig.
gotten
You have
better.
to open 2 cases to get a playset.
They've gotten they've
That's just
gotten
how it,
better.
Well,
They've
right,
So
gotten
because you're
better.
not flooding the market with a bunch of stuff. I think
Yes. I mean, if you want to go back to the ratios of world martial arts, let me know. Because I think
no,
everyone
I get it. I get it. I think
because
they're
we
better
can
off
kill this
because they
game
do
real
get
quick
more
like that.
value. But 2
you
cases
need a
is tough.
secondary market to survive as a TCG.
Yes. I think
You know,
their only big stumble, and I think we touched upon this on our last podcast, was the TP kits. I think that is where they lost their
yeah,
stride. Like, had they have continued TP kit accessibility like they did before set 10, before this change to the Unison Warrior stuff, this game would be full on like amazing. Where stores could order 6, 8, 10 kits and sit there and start getting out. People didn't feel like they had to drive 10 hours to go get one pack of a TP kit because there's such limited availability.
right now TP kits are the game having a limp while they're trying to walk.
Yeah, it's like trying to do a marathon with a cast on your leg.
or a club foot.
And I think TP kits are one tweak away from helping this game.
So if you're going to leave the TP promos as meta defining promos, which they really are, you need to make the accessibility higher. If you're
Yeah.
not going to keep the accessibility where it needs to be for it to be relevant for everybody to be able to play, let's dial down the power level of these things and stop having them creep everything out.
And we can get into this conversation as long as we want, but the other thing that a lot of players have mentioned is don't put meta defining cards in draft boxes which have a very 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 low ratio and low
I
pull
think
rates.
Which
I think this draft box that we had is the most underappreciated draft box we've ever had, and it
I talk
is
all the time.
absolute fire.
Yeah.
Draft box 4, okay, draft box 4 was like the gift that kept giving. When it first came out, there was like some good stuff. Then Topo started to climb up, so people started pulling out Topos. Then the blue Roshi negates started to climb up, so people started pulling out the blue Roshis. And then over the summer, we had the black Fu mission accomplished, so those started creeping up. The green Zamasu started creeping up. Green Goku Rose. The thing is,
the
there were a lot
apes.
of cards that were undervalued at the start that became good later, and they were good later.
Well, look at
Yeah,
UI
But
Well,
Goku.
people
Four
didn't
drop
realize
UI Goku started off as a $20 super rare,
yeah,
and then he peaked out at like 80.
yeah, people didn't understand the value of those cards until way later, and they all spiked one by one by one. Like it was
the
insane.
thing is too is that UI Goku just spiked again.
oh really? The
Why?
draft box one?
Yep.
There's like
It has an
there's like a
anniversary
reprint.
box card, doesn't it?
It does.
The
Yeah, it does.
original it's the reason why is
OG
because and I'm
collectors.
exactly. The collectors want the OG draft box stuff, and that's the bubble again. Is that
Well,
those
it's
cards
also
are getting pushed
Goku.
back up? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Goku.
But
It's also
then
Ultra Instinct Goku.
and then with draft box
With really good
5,
art.
with draft box 5, like Ribrians were really expensive at the start. Aboonies were a little underappreciated, but there was a lot of really good value in draft box 5 at the start. Draft box 6. Let's take a look. This is going to be dated February 7th, 2021. I'm going to take a look at Draft Box 6 prices. High to low market. Demon God Demigra, 36. 3-drop King Piccolo, the new ruler, 25. Piccolo Jr., Eradicator of Peace, 30. Chilled, Greatest Pirate in the Cosmos, 18. Son Goku Nimbus Master, 18. Lord Slug, Super Namekian, 18. Piccolo Jr., Giant Force, 15. Toa, Dark Demon Realm Scientist, 13. Bardock, Great Ape Assault, 10. There's there's a lot more that I'm not going to say that are between $5 to $10. All of those cards are like not hard to pull, and you get so much of your value back from them. Do you guys remember when I think it was Core? It was either Core or Cool Stuff. I think it was Cool Stuff. They had draft boxes on sale at Black Friday for like $55 a piece of draft box 6. They had the boxes on sale for that. You could have easily plussed off of that. But these cards, so many of them, Demigra on release, $20. Piccolo on release, $10. Piccolo Jr. on release, $10. Chilled on release, $5. Nimbus Master on release, $8. Slug on release, $5. Like, they've all gone up. They have all gone up. This
It's
Demigra
draft
showing
box,
dropped.
it's showing a steady
Demigra
increase.
and the blue Bardock ape dropped. Demigra was 40 to 50.
Demigra started at 20, Craig. I saw pre-orders for 20, and I almost snapped them off. And I'm like, I haven't played a black deck in a while. There's no reason for me to get it. The Bardock was a little bit of a fall. The Bardock started at like 30, and then now it's down to 10. But
All
we are getting more Bardock support in the evolution booster, so
Yeah.
that could go back up again.
But the thing is that so we can easily sit here and say that the draft box 6 cards are going to go up. What I'm saying is that now the draft boxes, and I've said this since draft boxes have started getting more notoriety, draft boxes should be a good chance to reprint overpriced cards. If you were to tell me that, you know, granted you can put some meta defining cards in there, like putting in the draw ape, those stuff is fine. I get it. But I don't think putting it's like the anniversary boxes and stuff like that. Like, to me, I think the draft boxes are a great opportunity to also put. We're gonna add 30 new cards into the game, and then all of this stuff is getting reprinted.
Yeah, but they did that in
And
Draft Box 4, and they did a crappy ratio of 50-50. You had 50% reprints and 50% new stuff, and the pull rates were awful. Like, I
That
opened
was
three
really
cases
bad.
of it. I opened 3 cases of it. It was crap.
yeah, so I think a good ratio is that you want more reprints than. I think. Would you rather say you want more reprints than new cards, or more new cards than reprints?
New cards.
Yeah,
I
So
I
think
like the
It
Draft Box
depends
for
on the
how it is now,
reprints.
where it's all whatever. You leave the anniversary boxes to be your reprint stuff, sort of like how the core sets are in Magic, where once a year or twice a year, however it rotates, that they have 2 reprint sets.
Well,
You have that option, and then you give, like, the anniversary gave us some. I think they gave us some new cards with the EX stuff because we got what the AOG
anniversary
support.
box always gives us new cards
Right.
alongside
So you have, but that was
reprints.
again guaranteed. You knew in that box you were getting that packet that had 2 of all those cards.
I think in order for Cam's idea to work, they would need to make it so that the reprints would be shifted rarities to lower level. So that like
Yeah.
all the new cards wouldn't so like old cards don't take up SR slots and just kill the value of the box. And
Right.
then you
So
still get reprints into the market.
I have a question then.
Magic does that.
Exactly.
I have a question. Let's take a look at the evolution booster. The evolution booster, there's only 2 monocolor red SRs in the entire set. One is Vegeta exploiting weakness, and the other one is that red
Evolution booster.
Vegeta.
Which is insane.
The
Yeah,
combo.
it's
Yeah.
really good. So that's like a meaningful reprint. And there's one for each color with this. There's the Abuni, there's going to be the Ribrianne, and there's going to be the Basil for each color. All those cards have dropped a lot in price ever since finding out that those reprints are happening. The Basil and the Ribrianne still hover at a healthy life or at a healthy total, a healthy price because they're still really good in the meta right now. But those are good reprints, and I think they hit a really good spot for what to reprint with those. I think the way that the extra booster it looks like they're going to be doing it is going to be helpful, but I don't know.
No, I think you're
Time will
right.
tell.
Yeah, it's really hard to once you start getting into that part as a TCG that you need to reprint certain cards because they're either too expensive or it's hard to get older product. Once you start getting into that, it's really difficult to start reprinting cards correctly, meaning that how to integrate it with newer sets. And
Yeah, well, because we don't have a rotating format. Like most games that do the reprint stuff, they're reprinting it for their older formats, where
yeah,
it doesn't really affect your day-to-day operation kind of situation.
and I mean the other thing too is that Magic just did something where they made I think they just did it with a recent set, something like it where they took a lot of the cards and added the old school brown
They're
border
doing
to
that for
it.
Time Spiral Remastered. There's a special thing coming out in March where they're having old bordered cards.
Like that's a cool way to do it. Now, what I think would be cool to do, and this is just me, where I think that now we obviously know that if you were to pull old SRs, it's kind of like whatever, who cares? What I think would be cool is pulling pulled SPRs, circulate those back in, and I think like a cool like off the cusp idea would be how the with the anniversary box you had the new cards and then you had a pack that was the reprints.
Oh yeah, yeah, the foil reprints. Yeah,
Yeah, why don't you do something where you can get where you can do reprints and it's like a pack, but it's just like one card, like a box topper did with Magic, and you open it up and it's an old SPR that was sought after.
Mhm.
Like, I honestly could see them going, "Hey, so you have these you have these 25 SPRs. Say the signatures are part of them, but they obviously have a low pull rate, right? Say it's one card and you open it up and that you could possibly get one. Like
but
it's a
then you're going to
chase.
go into your collector stuff. Like if the collectors hear that you're going to be able to do this, they're going to buy out your product.
But yeah, which is difficult because I'm just trying to think of cool ways that could circulate product.
You need to, if you're trying to get, again, I don't think SPRs would help. I think it's the secret rares that we're really looking to, again, like Victory Strike. You don't want to reprint Victory Strike. We know that
They
that's
already
just
said
really
they won't. They already said
right.
they won't do it.
But you have Apex, you have Cell. They tried to do it with the Gogeta secret rare. They did it with the Go
Those were
10.
erratas, and that was them testing the water.
I did like
So
that though. I did like that.
yeah, because again, the cheap version is $3 to $5. If you want to pay to play for the special max rarity one, it's 60, 70. So, but you still have a playable card. So, like Simon was talking about, he doesn't want to play against somebody that doesn't have access to said badass card, and he feels bad beating them because if they had that one, he would have lost. So now we have the ability to give people access to these cards at a more affordable rate, especially again because of COVID and because buyers are buying out all the stuff. They're not going to buy out a non-collectible card. This is just more playable for the people.
What about an option where they can offer pulls of old SCRs is as non foiled editions like they did with the erratas?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down for that part. I like that because again, you have your collector side of it, then you have your player side of it.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, you could maybe alt arts, I don't know, something to like entice people to get it. But I would get it if I could be like, hey, I'm gonna pull a pack, and there's a chance I could just get a non-foil Celzino, but I can still play it.
Mhm.
Like, as much as I don't mind spending $300 on an SCR, don't get me wrong. Look, I got the original Victory Strike for like $300. I'm okay with it.
No, no, I'm with you on that.
I
Like
have mine for 60.
again, you go to any other TCG, look at what a tier one deck cost you. I mean, standard Magic, I think
Let's
at
not.
best
No,
it
that's a
was
whole different. Standard
right.
Magic is
But
different.
look at what they used to be. Like, tier one decks used to be $1,000, $1,200 for standard, and your shit, pardon my language, rotated out what every year and a half. So it felt like that was just lost because most of it lost value into the other formats.
Did
With Dragon Ball, from set one to now, everything is still relevant. Like you can feel safe investing into it. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that this is a very good way to look at it because obviously, and that's the blessing of a rotating format and the curse of a rotating format. I don't know if everyone here played Magic. I know Simon does. I don't know if Neil or Craig, you both did, but Simon, do you remember no, Craig plays Magic. So does
over
everyone
years,
here?
I know it
So
all.
so do you guys remember when Battle for Zendikar first came out? Or no, sorry, when Cons first came out and they reintroduced the fetch lands,
Mhm.
and then when
Yeah,
Battle
boy.
came out and when Battle came out and they had the new dual lands. Remember with Jeskai Black, that deck was $1,000, $1,200 deck because of the Jace Vryn's Prodigies out of Origins, and then that deck
I
was
do want
top.
to say something. You could pre-order JVPs for $15. Nobody thought it was going to be a good card, and then it spiked up to 90.
Yeah,
I
boy, I made
Yeah.
so much money.
Oh, so did I. So did I.
Collected companies trading
I
them off at
bought.
3 for Jace's.
Yep, I bought out at my store every piece of Collected Company and Jace's because I knew that card was just going to be good.
Yeah.
And at one point, I had like 60 copies of JVP, and it was just easy money. But again, that's seeing cards before they spike. That's just you have to be in a game long enough to in a competitive format long enough to know when a card's just good. However, what I'm saying is, you know, if Dragon Ball had a rotating format, how would this game be different?
It wouldn't be. What cards
Its
from set
power
1 through 4 are played right now?
Sensor
beam.
Beam,
Beam.
Double Strike Kai's, Nimbus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing else is played. The game already functionally rotates with the power creep every set. The game has a functional rotation with the power creep. And that's why I don't understand why people would be so opposed to an actual rotation. I think Magic's rotation has its ups and downs and Pokemon's rotation, but a rotation normally can be healthy. You can do a healthy rotation with stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dragon Ball. The power creep happens naturally that there's a rotation just by the power of the new cards coming out.
What
Like
they should do for Dragon Ball, and I've said this before, I mentioned this to the Bandai devs at Nationals in 2019, is that why not introduce a rotating format and then also have it a format where the ban list is like not applicable. It's just no laws. Like, do it. Just have that format where people can just play and have overpowered decks. Bring back OG Storm. Bring back Mecha that's not eroded or banned. Nothing. You know what I'm getting at? Have
do you
fun with
remember
it.
do you remember the Tournament of Power when they had the no ban list, no errata format?
Yup.
Do you remember what won or what deck they went undefeated but his teammates did really bad with?
Wasn't it Mecha?
Well, yeah, but everybody was trying to play Mecha. There was somebody I can't remember. I want to say it was Dashy. Maybe it wasn't. Somebody played the Beerus from the reboot Beerus leader. Because with no erratas, you could play an extra 4 of the super combos from set 1 because they didn't have super combo written on them. So
Yep.
every deck got an extra 4.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
And you got to
didn't that
play
play the Hercule?
thinks he's the best Hercule because there was a gameplay clarification errata on it that it was never intended to work with leaders other than Boo, but the Hercule did because it told you to ramp 2, then put 2 cards from your energy on the bottom if your leader was a Boo leader. But the way that it got translated was that you only had to put 2 cards on the bottom if you were a Boo leader. So they errated that. But in a ban in like an environment like you're saying where there's no erratas, no anything, and it would be crazy, there would be a lot of really neat decks popping up. But I think that a
Why not
meta
do
would
it?
start to slowly solve.
So
But
then why not do that? That would be a fun format like for people to play. I honestly think if that was a sanctioned format by Bandai where it was no rules allowed, that it could bring in people and it could have fun.
you just have to convince people to want to play it. That's the main thing. If you
You
can
have to
convince
convince
somebody to
people that
play it,
rotation.
power to them.
Look, I'm saying sign me up. Like I played Vintage for Magic. Someone lent me a Vintage deck and I had so much fun. I've played Legacy. I love those style formats. Like to me, old school Pokemon was awesome. Like just the fact that you can play with the older cards, the way like you have the formats that is the band errata, that type of thing. Sure, whatever. healthy for that standard meta. I want the Wild West. I want to walk into an event and be like, oh, I lost on turn 1. That was still fun, whatever I knew what to expect. Like, you know what you're signing up for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that to me is fun. That's why when Daylon did it at the Tournament of Power, I thought that was the smartest move that they could ever do. If he ever has Tournament of Power 2, he should do it again.
I would
If
agree.
if he ever decides that Max Rarity Gaming is going to become its own TO and hold these style events, that should be a premier format for him. If he does that, he's going to gain so much notoriety in the community because people will do it to have fun. That is the definition of why people play card games, is to have fun. Some people find fun in winning. Some people find fun in playing with their friends. That format is fun because you can do everything at once. If you sign up for that event in that format and get pissed off because you're losing like turn 1 or losing to dumb, stupid, not fair combos, you signed up knowing what you were getting into. You can't complain. If you complain, you basically just spent your money to complain, and at that moment, who cares? If we're talking about like a regular standard meta and you sign up and it's like when Storm was and it's like, hey, look, this isn't healthy, then I can see the complaining there. Like, I can see that. But if you're signing up for a no hold bar back tournament where everything is no bans, no erratas, nothing whatsoever, you're signing up knowing it. To me, I would love doing it, and I think that's a fantastic thing to do.
I agree.
I
All
think it'd
right.
be fun. But
So
I think,
so go
I think
ahead.
we've gone long.
yeah, we've
That's
gone
what I was
long.
gonna say.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. So we'll kind of just wrap it up. Honestly, I think this was a great talk. I think getting into the meta, going into Miami is really good for the players, obviously, for anyone listening to this. If you've reached this far into the video and this far into the podcast, we appreciate it because now we're just ending on rambling. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, we have a TCG player affiliate link. It is located down below in the description box. We'd love for you to use it. Any cards that you want to buy decks that are going to run Miami, go right ahead. Use that link. You want to buy cards so you can spike the collectors and hold on and put Dogecoin to the moon, use the link. If you want to buy cards and hold them so you're now a collector, use the link.
Wait,
If you want to
it's
buy
got
700
doggy coin?
Dogecoin, yeah. You wanna use the link to buy boxes and hold them so you can spike the price and sell them at a profit because you're now a businessman in a TCG community. Have fun. Use the link. Use the link. I don't care. I just want to make more money. So that's all I want. And I'm thankful that you guys got to this point in the podcast. So from me, I'm Cameron, Craig, Neil, Simon. Thank you. This has been awesome. We'll come back with episode 3. Hopefully within the next week we'll have more content for you guys. Enjoy the rest of your night and goodbye.